Hi guys, in this video I'm going to go over a survey using a user form and how you can create a macro that'll have a user form pop up. It'll run through a survey and then you could send that macro out to people and they could in a workbook and they could respond back with their answers in that workbook and then you could gather all their answers. So that sounds complicated, but someone actually emailed in and asked, I'd like to do a survey, and their survey consists of a bunch of pictures and they have questions with the picture and they have answers for every question, and the user needs to select an answer and they want to display all that and collect all the answers, and they have 60 people. So this is someone who's at their work and they want to do a survey at their work. So initially I told them, go to a website that has free surveys. There's a lot of those. But she said that the pictures were an issue. So I'm sure there's ways around that. I'm sure you could do it through other ways, but you can also do it through VBA. So that's what we're going to go through now. And before we get into that, remember, go to excelvbasequel.com and there's about 10 hours of video, all free. You can watch all the videos. You can learn how to be a pro VBA programmer and do lots of examples, walk through every line, and put your email in here. And you could be updated when a new video goes up. And then contact me here and send me all your questions. And if I have time, I'll put up a video like this in response. So let's get started. So here we go. Okay, let me try to explain this. Now, the person who emailed had 60 questions. Every question had some answers associated with it, and a person had to select an answer. But they also had pictures for every question. So I created these are bitmaps down here. And I just went into Paint and I just scribbled and I named them cat, man, and puppy. So these are all bitmap images .bmp, and I just made them in Paint and I named them cat, man, puppy. Okay, so I'm going to use them as the pictures that this person would use who's going to send out this survey. Then in terms of the questions, so the person said they have 60 questions. Well, I only have 3, and you could do 1,000 questions, but in this case I'm just going to show you how to do a survey with 3. And initially we'll go through the code to make the macro to run the survey, and then after that we have to make another macro to parse through all the workbook. So again, if you're confused right now, what's going to happen is we're going to make a workbook that's going to have a macro in it that's going to run a survey. This person is going to email out that workbook to 60 people in her company, okay? And those 60 people are going to run the survey on their computer, and they're going to save the workbook and send it back to her. And she is then going to just save that workbook in a folder, and then we're going to write a macro to catch all the responses that are in that folder. Okay, so it's all going to be automated. The only real manual work here is going to be when people send back the workbook, she's going to have to save the workbook into a folder. That's pretty much all the manual work, and also setting up the questions and the pictures. Okay, so here's my questions that I'm going to use. I have questions here, 3 of them, right? I have 3 questions right here. I say, is this dog a puppy? And the answer, I give 2 options. Yes, it's a puppy. No, it's not a puppy. And then I provide the image path here. And this image path is going to the folder where I have these pictures, okay? Now, this person at work, she needs to, or if you're going to do this yourself, you need to put this on in a folder where everyone who's going to run the survey can access it. Okay, so if you put it on your desktop and you send out an email and say, run this survey, it's not going to work for that person because they don't have access to your desktop. So the image path, this is going to be used in our user form to call the picture, and you need to make sure when you send this out to your company, when they do the survey, that they can access this folder. Okay, so make sure it's on like a network drive. Okay, so here's our questions, and then I have another question down here. Is this a man? Yes, it's a man. That's option A. Option B is no, it's not a man. Same thing for cat. Is this a cat? Option A, yes, it's a cat. Option B, no, it's not a cat. And again, I have the image paths of all the images here. So I just went into the folder to get those image paths. I right click, you go to properties, and you see here the location, right? You just copy this location, and then you have to also append to it the name of the image. Okay, so now we have our pictures in a folder on a network drive, and we have a sheet here called questions that contains our questions and then our options. Okay, so I only have two options. If you want to do 4 options for every question, you could do that. Okay, so you could just add them here. So you have questions, options, and the path to the image. Okay. You also need a tab in this workbook for the results. So when someone runs this survey, we want the results to be stored on this sheet called results. And what's going to happen is she's going to send this workbook out to a person at the company. They're going to open it up and run the survey. The results are going to be stored here. Then this person who just did the survey is going to save the workbook, send it back to her. She's going to put this workbook in a folder where we're going to open it up automatically and collect the results here. Okay, so we're going to grab these results and put them into a master workbook so that we can say that she sends out to 60 people. We're going to have a folder with 60 workbooks in it, and we're going to go through that folder, open up all 60 workbooks, and grab whatever on this results tab and put it in a master workbook, so it's real easy for her or him to look at all the data that was collected. Okay, so you need this results tab down here. Okay, next thing, in order to run the survey, create a tab called start, or whatever you want to call it, but I called it start. And here, we're going to start coding. We're going to put a button on here, and I'm just going to put an ActiveX control. Remember, go to insert ActiveX control. And now I'm going to right click and go to properties, and I'm going to change the caption here to start survey. And I'm also going to change the back color just to make it look a little prettier. I'm going to change the back color to yellow. And also, okay, let me just close out of this. So that's good. Okay, so now I have a button on my worksheet. So okay, this is what the person's going to push to have a form pop up. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we make a form pop up when this button is clicked? Well, first thing you do is you in design mode, you could toggle between this. If I double click this now, nothing happens. But when you go into design mode and you double click, you can access an area where you can write code behind it in the Visual Basic in the Visual Basic editor. So let's do that. So we're going to double click, and it's going to take us to a place where we can access code to write code that will run when the button is clicked. But let me go back. I'm just going to erase this. I want to make this button name something more meaningful. So I'm going to go into properties again, and I'm going to go to name. Instead of just command button 1, I'm going to name it BTN start. Okay, I'm going to go back here. I'll close this and then double click again, and notice that now I have a sub called btn start.click, right? So here I can write code to say open up a form right now, but I don't have that form yet. So where do we get the form from? This was a dummy form, so I'm just gonna delete it. Do you want to export? No. Okay, so where do we get the form from that's gonna pop up? Well, you go in here, you go insert user form, right? And first thing, let's change some properties of the form. So we right click, we go to properties, and the properties window pops up, and we want to scroll up, and let's see, we want to change the name to QA FORM, so question answer form, and we want to change the caption, which is this thing up here. So we go to caption, oops, and I don't know what that error was yet. Let's see. Caption is going to be called survey. I'll just put survey. Let me change that name again. Okay, so it looks like what's happening is that the old form that I deleted is somehow remaining in memory or something. So I'm just going to name it a different name, QA form survey, QA survey. Okay, and also okay. So now we have a form called QA survey right here, and the caption says survey. Okay, so now we have to call this form. with that button, remember? And that button is under this sheet in the Microsoft Excel objects. It's in here, right? So now I can call the form by just doing this. I could do QA survey.show, right? So now let's click the button, and just doing that, QA survey.show, is going to pull up the form. But I have to get out of design mode. So I got to click out of design mode, and when I click it now, here's the form, but it's blank. Okay, so we're getting further along here. This form is eventually going to run a survey for us. So let's put some controls on here for the survey. And what we're going to need is we're going to need a space for the image, going to need a space for a question, and two option buttons for the answers, A or B, right? And we're going to need a button to go to the next question, and we're also going to need something for the question. So let's build that. It'll only take maybe a couple minutes or so. So I'm just going to make this a little bigger. And okay, so now we're going to put controls on here. So we go to Toolbox up here, and first thing we want to put an image at the top. So here's the image. I'm just going to drag this across like that. And for everything I drag over, automatically the properties window comes up with that whatever I just dragged on there. So I just put an image box up here. So I'm going to change the name to FRM_IMG. Okay. Now I want to put a text box actually for the person's name so that I know who did the survey. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to put a text box, and again, properties window pops up, and I'm just going to rename this txt name. And then I'm going to go here and put a label, and I'm just going to go let's see, LBL. Oh, actually I don't. Well, LBL. Actually, I don't need a name for this one. I mean, I don't need to change that. I just need to change the caption. So the caption here is going to be enter name. And I also want to change the font style here. I'll make it bold. And I want to change the centering. So I can scroll down further, and I could go to text align. And I'm going to make this centered. Or actually, yeah, centered. Okay. And you could mess around and make it look nice, change colors and whatnot. Okay, so now I'm going to need a place for the question. So I'm going to take a label here. I'm just going to drag a box across here. And I'm going to change this to LBLQ. Q stands for question. Notice that I'm naming things like, if it's an image object, I'm just going to IMG. I use IMG. If it's a text box object, I use TXT. LBL for label. That's a good way to name stuff. Okay, now I need some radio buttons to hold the possible answers. And I call them radio buttons, so I'm going to put RDA for the A option, and another radio box here for RDB. And then we just need a button down here to go to the next question. So I'm going to go here, and here's a button. I could go in here, and I want to change this button name to BTN next. So that'll take me to the next question. I will change the caption to next question, and I'll put some things like that after. I'll change the back color just to make it look good to green, and I'll change the font also to bold. Okay. And okay, so now we have a user form. It looks pretty good. Let me just move this over a little bit so these are lined up. And now let me save. Actually, yeah, let me save it. I'm going to go over here. I have a folder called survey, and I'm going to name this survey. And I'm going to change this to Microsoft enabled workbook. I'm going to click save. Okay, so now let's run the start button and see what happens. So we click start survey, and now look what happens. Okay, so now we're getting very close. We have our template. So what we're going to do is all the data that you see on this worksheet in the questions, let me get out of here. On this questions sheet right here, somehow we need to access that so that when we click this survey, the question will appear here, the options will appear here, the image will appear here. And then when they click next, the next question, all that appears here. So how could we do that? You could grab it right from the sheet, but that's kind of messy, right? Because then you have to access the sheet and you have to keep track of the rows and put those into variables. It's just messy and not good to access the sheet directly every time. So what we're going to do is we are going to build a two-dimensional array that when that form pops up, all this information here is going to be in memory. It's going to be in an array. And for the life of the survey, we're just going to populate the user form with this data. And then when they press next, the next button, we're going to populate the user form with this data. And then they press next again, and we're going to populate the user form with this data. So that next button is going to be calling the data in every row, okay? And also the image here. It's gonna go get that image. So how do we do that? Well, it's not very difficult. We just go into the code, right? And when I said when the form pops up, we want it to show that information. So you somehow need to initialize the form. So how do you initialize a form? You just go to the form and you just double click it. And right away, if you watch any other videos, there were some videos on Microsoft Excel events, and that's what this is. This is a user form event. So when the user form is clicked, Microsoft Excel has these events available. So what we want is not for something to happen when the user form is clicked, but if you go to this drop-down list, you want something to happen when the user form is initialized. So click this, initialize, and this is the event that we want. We want user form underscore initialize. So I could delete this one, okay? And now we have to populate an array to hold that data on the questions tab, right? So let's do that. So let's do sheets, questions.select, and now okay, so now when we populate a two-dimensional array, we need to know how big it is, right? And to know how big it is, what we're going to do is we're going to find how many rows are in this column and then just subtract 1 from it, okay? So to do that, I'm just going to create a variable called r, and I'm not going to declare variables here. I could go back and make the code perfect later, but for time's sake, I'm not going to declare every single variable. So I'm just going to declare variable r, and it's going to be, what's going to happen is I'm going to go to the cell A1, and I'm going to go end XL down dot row -1. Okay, so this will get me if I do XL down starting from here, it'll give me 4. But I know that this first row is all headers, so I subtract 1, and that gives me 3 rows, and that's going to be the rows of my two-dimensional array. Okay, so the size of the row entry of my two-dimensional array. So then I can redimension the array. But now you're asking, well, where is the array? Okay, so I didn't declare the array yet because I don't want to declare it in this subroutine. Because when I have all that data in this two-dimensional array, basically we're going to create an array that is 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, by 4 columns. But we're going to use it. We're going to use that array not only in this subroutine, we're going to use it in other subroutines. So I'm going to declare the array actually on another module, and I already did it there, but I could do it again. Basically, you just insert a module. You go insert module, and this module 1 pops up. You go over here, and all you got to do is this global. I'm just going to put a comment, global variables, and then dim. I'm going to declare an array called info as variant. Okay, so what this does, this will declare an array that is actually not dim, I want public. So I want this array to be able to be accessed not only in this subroutine, but all subroutines anywhere in this project. And that's what this will do. And I put it in this module because if you try to put it in this area under the Microsoft Excel object, under this forms area, you can't. So you need to put the global variable here in a separate module. Okay. So now an array is declared here. And like I said before, it's going to be a two-dimensional array. Well, maybe you're asking, well, what does a two-dimensional array declaration look like? Well, this is it, right? You don't need to put a comma in here or anything. You do that over here, and I'll show you that right now. So the array info is declared, and it was declared globally. So now I can redimension it as r minus 3, comma 3. And I'm going to put a comment here. Redim two-dimensional array. Okay, so if you don't know what this is about, this redim, go watch the video on the one-dimensional dynamic array. Okay, because it's the same concept. All it is saying is that I don't know the size of the array at the time that I declare it. So in that case, you can use this redim statement to once you find out the size, you could size it. You could make the dimensions of the array r minus 3. And why is it r minus 3? Well, it's because this value is going to be 3, right? So that means this value is going to be 2. Actually, this is r minus 1. Why is it r minus 1? It's because indexing of arrays starts at 0. And if you don't know what that means, go watch the video on arrays and you'll understand. The indexes start at 0, so that if I have 3 rows, I want my array to go from 2 to 3. So let me just demonstrate that here. We want an array that is 3 rows by 4 columns, right? And let's just say this is our 3 by 4, which means 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 rows, right? And 4 columns. Imagine this is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is 3 by 4. But remember, in Excel, arrays start at 0. So imagine this is 0, 1, 2, and this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So in Excel, we want a 2 by 3 array, and that's why I subtracted this 1 here, and I only put 3 here instead of the 4 columns you see, because the index starts at 0. Okay, so now let's populate a two-dimensional array real quick. Fill 2D array. Okay, so all we're going to do here is actually let me set r equal to 2, and let me set an index equal to 0. And now I could do until cells r comma 1 dot value is equal to blank, and I'll do r is equal to r plus 1, I is equal to I plus 1, loop. So what is this loop? Well, r is going to be 2 initially, so all I'm doing is saying in cell row 2 column 1, go down until you get to blank, and it's going to put all the data here into an array. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, the array is called info, right? So I'm going to copy that. I'm just going to put info I starts at 0, right? Because the array is indexed at 0, comma 1, or I comma 0 is equal to cells r comma 1 dot value. So cells r comma 1, the first time through, it's gonna put this is this dog a puppy into the array, the two-dimensional array, at row 0, column 0. And now I want to put the other data in. So I'm going to put this in. Okay, so I just got to change the column of the array. Okay, so all this does here is, you know, I is the row index, and that is the index that is changing. It initially is 0. So the array, initially, the first time through, it puts these 4 pieces of data into the array. This is I0, which is initially I is 0. So this is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, and 0, 3. Right there. Okay? And it'll do that until there's no value in this column. So the first time it goes through, it puts this in the array. Then the next time in the loop, it puts that in the array. And next time in the loop, it puts this in the array. Okay? So let's test it. Let me put a breakpoint here. And let me just watch this. I'm going to put a watch on this. And I'm just going to run this. Oops. I have to run the initialize, right? So I'm going to click run. Okay, so I just clicked run. I go into here. Here's my info, right? Here is here's my first row. 0, 0 is this dog a puppy? Yes, this is a puppy. 0, 2, 0, 3, right? So now we have a two-dimensional object called info that holds 3 rows. Here's the first row, here's the second row, and here's the third row. So you can see that all the data here, everything that I'm highlighting is in memory right now. Okay, so that's cool. And also, not only is it in memory, but it's globally in memory, so that if this sub ends, it's still going to be in memory. Okay, so that's cool. Okay, so now what we want to do is populate the user form. So now we're going to populate the user form with data. And what we want to do is do something like this, QA survey. So this is the name of our user form, remember? Dot LBLQ is equal to info 0, 0. So this line right here, it takes what was in that array and it puts it on the user form. And in our case, it puts it in the question area. And info 0, 0 is the question, because notice question is 0, 0, then 0, 1 is first option, and then 0, 2 is second option, and 0, 3 is the image path. So let's complete this. Let's go back here and put the other 4 pieces of information on. So here we had an RDA, right? And here that was in 0, 1. And then in 0, 2 we should have RDB, right? And here we have something called FRM image, right? Now we need to go another step here. So here's the image object, and I want to access the picture property. So I do picture. Okay. So remember, like all these labels and things, they're objects, right? And you could always access properties of an object or functions of an object by using this dot operator. That's what the dot operator does, right? And here, this should be 0, 3 because that's the image path. But you also need to do something here called load picture. And you put, it's a function. Load picture is an Excel function. You don't need to write or anything. It's in the Excel library. If you don't know what that is, go watch the video on the Excel object model, and you'll be able to search for this load picture and find out exactly what it does. But all it needs really is the file path. So I put that in there. Okay. So now let's run this again. And remember, this is the important part. This is where the data is being transferred from the array to the form. So I'm going to go back to Excel. I'm going to run the survey, run the survey button. Okay, so now look what we got going on. Info is our two-dimensional array. It has 3 rows and 4 columns, and here's all the data in it. And initially, I said 0, 0, info 0, 0. Well, that is this dog a puppy? That's the value. I'm assigning that to the label LBLQ on the survey form, okay? And I'm assigning RDA to 01, and that's this one, info 01. You see how they match up? And that's yes, this is a puppy. And then 02 is RDB, and no, this is not a puppy. And then 03 is the path to the image in the function load picture. Okay, so if I run this, look what happens. Now this is cool, right? Here's my image that corresponds to is this dog a puppy? Here's option button 1. Well, we have the image and we have the question. Now the question is, why aren't we getting option button 1? You know, why are we getting this, right? So let's take a look. Let's close this. Let's go back here. I bet you I didn't change the... You know why? Because same thing that I need to access the property of the FRM image, I need to access LBLQ dot, all this should be the caption. I want to access the caption property. So I need to do that. I need to put dot caption. And once I do that, okay, so once I do that, access the caption property of the label and the caption property of the option button. Then if I run this and I start it, now we get what we're looking for, right? We have our image, we have our question here, we have our option A and option B. Okay, so now we're in business now. This is good. This is real good. Okay, so what's next though? So now we want the person to select this next button. We want them to enter a name and then select an answer here, and then we want them to click next. Okay, so now we have to write code for this next button. So let's do that. We go here, and how do we do that? Well, you just double click on this next button. That's all you have to do in the design, in the VBA editor. You just double click, and look what happened. We get button next underscore click, and that's exactly what we want. Excel automatically makes that for you, right? Okay, so now what we want to do, when they click the next button on this form, we have to verify a couple things. We have to verify that they put a name in here and that they selected something, because we don't want them to move on until they select something. So let's go in here, and I'm gonna take this actually I'll leave it there, and we want to do this. We want to confirm there is a name. Okay, so we do this. We do if txt name dot value is blank, then we put a message box up. Message box, please enter a name. And we also want to exit the sub. Exit sub. And then we end if. Okay. Now we exit the sub because we don't want to go any further if they didn't fill this in. Similarly, we want to check that an answer is populated. So I'll do confirm there is an answer. Right? And how do we do that? Well, we just do rd a dot value equals false, and rd b dot value equals false. Then we put another message box up. Please select an answer. And the same thing, we want to exit the sub if that's the case. Okay. Okay, so that'll take care of our sort of error handling. So let's test that out. Remember, it's under this button click. Okay, so all we have to do is go here, go to start. Here is our form. Let's say someone doesn't enter a name. Well, it's a message box pops up when they click next, and it says please enter a name. So if they enter a name, I just put that as in my name. Then let's click next. Oh, but another message box pops up and says please select an answer. Okay, so now they select an answer. Now what? Okay, so now we're at this place where everything is good. They didn't make any errors. We want to collect the data. We want to collect the information in the survey. Okay, so now basically what we want to do is build another array. Okay, and that's not difficult at all. We just need to build another global array that will store the data. So let's go back in this module 1, and I want to create another array called results. Okay, and there's my array called results that will store the data. Okay, so now we can go back to the survey or to the form, and now we're at the point up here where we can enter the name, question, and answer into results array. Okay, so this is pretty simple. All we do is but wait, how do we know how big our results array has to be, right? Well, look at our info array is a array that is 3 rows by 4 columns, and on the results tab we only have 3 columns, right? So we need to we're going to have the question there's 3 rows, right, for the question. That means there's going to be 3 results. So we need 3 rows for the results thing, but we need 1 less column because there's only 3 columns instead of 4. So all we need to do is go over here, and when we initialize the info array, we will also know the size of our results array. So we're going to go down here and put results. And it's going to be the same number of rows, but 1 less column. Okay? And now we can enter the data. So we do results. Okay, so now what? How do we know what question we're on, right? We want to enter the data for question number 0, right? That's what we want in this results array. So what we need to do is when we first initialize the form, we need to create a variable called a global variable called question number as integer. So this is going to tell us what question number the person is on. And when we initialize the form, we want to set the question number equal to 1. Okay? And I'll show you why that is in a second. So we go back here. We now have a variable that holds the question number. So the first time through, the person is on question 0, but we declared question number equal to 1, and I'll show you why we did that. But the first time through, question number is equal to 1 right now. When they click this next button the first time, this variable has 1 in it. So we want to subtract 1 from it, and then we want a 0 equal to the QA form dot txt name dot value. Okay, so what is this doing? Well, this is a results array is a 3 by 3 array, and in the first entry is going to go the person's name. Okay, so we're going to grab it from the form, and you could imagine in memory we're going to have it in like a cell here. And the next one is going to be the question. So for that one, the question number. So we do 1. So this is the second the second column. And instead of using a QA form, we just put question number -1. Okay, and now we get the answer from the form. So what we're doing at this point is pulling in the data from the form, right? When they click next on the form, we're going to pull data. So we're going to do this. We're going to do if rdb.value is equal to true, then results question number -1 comma 2 is equal to A. Now I could put the caption of the else. I could put the whole entire caption of the option button here, but I'm just going to put, I know the first response is A and the second one is B. Okay, so here you could put, the dot caption. Could put RDA dot caption. I'm just going to put A. Okay. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Okay, I'm going to run this and watch. So I click Start Survey. I put in a name. I put in an answer. I click Next. I spelled something wrong here. So can't spell things wrong. So I go back here. I click Start. I put in a name. Put in an answer. QA form. Let me put a watch on this thing. I am referring to QA form, but it should be QA survey. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna do it again. Put in a name, put in an answer, click Next. Okay, so if I look at this results array, you're gonna understand right now. So I have this results array. It has 3 rows in it because there's going to be 3 results of the survey because I have 3 questions. And I just populated the first row of my results array. And here's my name that I put in. And here is my question number, right? Actually, this should be just 1. Now, that is why up here, so the array is 0 based, right? So that's why I subtracted 1 here. I shouldn't have subtracted it here because our questions are not 0 based, right? Well, they could be, but do you get what I'm doing here? This is 0 based because it's an Excel array. So the first time through, question number is equal to 1. I subtract 1 so that it's okay with the 0 based system. So now this is 0 the first time through. But when I put in the results, I should have 1 as my question number 1, okay? Okay, so this number is 1, and then there's my answer. Well, it was there. Okay, but you get the idea, right? You get the idea. So now we have our results, right? So every time they press next, this is what's going to happen. We're going to confirm there's a name, confirm there's an answer, and put the data in results array. Okay, but there's more we have to do. We have to, when they go to the next question, set the radio buttons to empty so that they're not checked, right? And to do that, you just do rda.false, value equals false, and rdb.value is equal to false. Okay, so now we have a new question. We want a new question, right? So now we want to populate the form with the data that comes next, right? So we have to do this. If the question number is equal to ubound info plus 1, then we're going to do something. Else, we're going to do something else. And if. Okay, so what is this doing? It's saying if we've reached the last question, then what are we going to do? So in our case, this is saying if the question number, so in our case we have 3 questions. If this number is 3, if that is equal to the upper bound of info, now what is this? Info is an array in Excel that it has size 2, right? And the first dimension, the row has size 2. And we want to say if the size plus 1, because it's 0 based, if that's equal to the number of our questions, then we want to stop. So here we want to stop. So I'm just going to put stop. And down here we're going to keep going. Populate next question. So when I say stop, what do we want to do? Well, we want to say a message box that says thank you for completing the survey. And we also want to exit the sub, but not exit sub, we want to close the form, so we want to unload form. Okay. Okay, so this is it, right? We have to do another step up here, but for now, if we reach 3, so we click next and next again and next again, then we've reached all our questions, and we'll fall into this area and we'll display a message box that says thank you, and then the form will go away. If we haven't, then basically we want to take this code and move it up here, right? And we want to, instead of having 0, now we want to have question number. So that's why this question number variable is really important, because it's a global variable that is keeping track of what question we're on, and it's allowing us to, if they click next and we haven't reached the end of our questions, then it allows us to populate our questions again. Okay. Now we want to increment the global question variable, right? So we click next, we check the stuff above, we set the radio buttons to empty, we populate the form with new data. Now we set question number is equal to question number plus 1. So this is the most important part of the code right here, is that this keeps tracks of what question you're on, so it tells us when to stop. When that, if they keep clicking next, it tells us when we should stop. This right here, this variable. Okay. Well, we need to do something more when we stop up here. When we stop, we have to we have to go to the results tab, and we have to enter the results on that tab, right? So let's do that. So I want to do something like this. Call, enter results. Well, first let me show you that it works. So I'm going to comment that out now. This is going to be a subroutine we're going to write. But let me go here and let me show you that if I put a watch on, okay, watch and info has results. So I'm going to start the survey, put my name in, I do the first question, I click next. Now watch what happens. That picture changed and the question changed and the answers changed. Okay? And if I click next again, it says please select an answer. The image changed again. Then the question says, is this a cat? No, it's a cat. So the question, everything's changing, right? That's good. And notice also that these radio buttons are blank when I press next and I go to the next question. That's good. So now that's it, right? So this is the last question. I click next and it pops up a message box. It says thank you for completing the survey. And then it closes. Oops, this should be unload QA survey. Let's just run through it right quick again. So we put in a name, select answer, select answer, select answer, message box, okay, close. Okay, so now we're that far. Okay, so now what's next? We have to put those results onto the results tab. And this is relatively straightforward. We want to go here and we want to call another subroutine. So I'm just going to put call enter results, and down here I'm just going to do sub enter results, and now I have a space to write some code. And what I'm going to do here is do this sheets results dot select, and then I'm going to do range A2 to C1000 dot clear contents. Okay, and then I'm going to loop through the results array and put data on sheet. Okay, so why did I clear this range out? So A2 to C1000 on the results tab. This is if they run the survey more than once. So I'm selecting this range down to row 1000 and I'm just clearing it out. And now once it's cleared out, I'm gonna take that results array and I'm gonna put it here. Okay. So to do that, I just set r equal to 2, right? And it's going to be another do loop, or actually it'll be a 4. Let's do 4. For I equal to 0 to u bound results next I, and now all we do is do this cells r comma 1 dot value is equal to results I comma 0, right? So this is going down the row, you know, in the results array. It's going to put every row onto the worksheet. So row 2, this is row 2 column 1, it puts that value in. And then row 2 column 2, or row 2 column 1, it puts this value in. Then row 2 column 2, it puts that value in. So it populates that it populates the worksheet, right? Okay, so now let's run this thing. So now if we run it, I'm going to put in Joe. I'm going to put yes. I'm going to put yes and a yes. Okay, so I go to the results and I don't get what I get. Why don't I get what I get? So let me go back here. Here we go. There should be 3 here, right? Yes. So let's do it again. We just click survey, Joe, yes, no, yes, Thank you for completing the survey. Okay, and here it is. Oops, oops, oops. Again, I forgot to see what happened is that we didn't move down the rows here. You're probably catching this. We're almost done, by the way. This is a very long video actually, but I think it's useful that you see the design from start to finish of something like this. So all we have to do here is just go r is equal to r plus 1, and that will populate the whole entire thing. So I go back, just put a dummy name. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for completing the survey. Okay. Now look at what we got here. Okay. We have our name, and for question 1, here's my answer. For question 2, here's my answer. For question 3, here's my answer. Okay. So this is good, right? So now the person is done with the survey. So we just built a survey, a 3-question survey with pictures and all that form stuff, and now the person is done with the survey. So they can save it, and they can send it to the person, send it back to the person. So remember, the person at the company sent this out to 60 people. The 60 people each open up their workbook that they get in their inbox, and they run this survey, right? Once they run it, the results are going to be stored here on this tab. They save the workbook and send it to this woman. Okay. Now, what has to happen? Okay, so let me just save this workbook. And then I'm going to do something else here. I'm going to save this workbook as survey 2. And I'm just going to change all these to A, Joe, Joe, Joe. I'm going to save this, and now I'm going to save it again. So I'm just simulating, okay, 3 people fill this out. So I'm simulating the person who sent out the 60 surveys is now getting all the surveys back with the people's data in it, and she's saving them with a name, you know, survey 2, survey 3. Okay, so she saves them like that. Okay, and let me change this one to ABA or ABA, and I'll save that. So now what do we have? Let me go into the survey folder. You know, we have 3 workbooks. Let's say I made that survey and I sent it to 3 people. Well, here's what they returned to me. One person, it's taking a bit to open up. One person returned this, and I'm just going to change her name to Mary. One person returned this, and I'll just, you know, all B's. The next person, Joe, returned this, all A's, right? And the next person returned ABA, Joe, right? Let me see the first. This guy's name is Joe too. Yeah, I gotta change this guy's name. I'll name him Ed. Okay. Okay, so we have 3 people who completed that survey in the workbook, and now the person has these workbooks in their folder, right? But imagine there's not 3, right? Imagine there's 60. And imagine there's not 3 questions. Imagine there's 60 questions. So this would be a real pain to now go through 60 workbooks, open it up, go to the results tab, grab the 60 questions, you know, right here, and then copy paste it to some other workbook so that you can get all the data in one place. So let's write a macro that will put all this data in all those workbooks in one place. So I'm just going to create a new workbook. I'm going to save this as results of survey, and I'm going to save it in the same folder. Now here's where I'm going to write a macro in here. I'm going to click save. Okay, so now I'm going to write a macro, and all I want on this in this workbook, I'm going to put a sheet here called data. All I want is one sheet. All I want is one sheet that is going to give me the name, the question, and the answer for everyone who did the survey, all 60 people, or in our case, all 3. So what macro do we have to write? We have to write a macro that will open up all the workbooks in that folder and go to the results tab and get the data and then put it here. Okay, so let's do that. So we go to the Visual Basic Editor by clicking Alt F11, and let's insert a module. Okay, and let's name this sub results of survey. Okay, so now we know we're gonna have to work with workbooks in this code, right? We know that we're always going to have this workbook open called results of survey, and all we're going to be doing is opening up 60 other workbooks. So we need to have a workbook object. So actually we need 2 workbook objects. One called, I'm going to name it main WB as a workbook, and then another just called WB as a workbook. And we need a integer variable. So here is the main workbook, which is the one with all the results, and this WB is going to be the one that's used in a loop to open up 60 workbooks. Okay, so initially what I do is I set main WB equal to this workbook. Okay, and then I do main WB.activate just to make sure. Okay, and now I do something like this: active workbook dot sheets data dot select, and I do range let's see, A2 to A5000 dot clear contents. So all I'm doing is clearing the contents, right? So all this code here does is select the sheet called data, and clear the contents from A to C. And why A to C? Because it's all this data, right? On the data tab, I just clear out whatever was there in case this person wants to run this code again. Okay, so now we need to set up a folder object and a file system object, right? So we need this file system object, right, to deal with the objects we're working with. We're working with folders, we're working with workbooks, and we need to be able to deal with objects like that. So you do something like this: set file system object, I'll call it obj, is equal to create object, and you're going to do scripting dot file system object, and then we need another object for a folder, set folder obj is equal to file system obj dot get folder, right? And here's where you put the path of your folder. And I have that here. I'm just going to go back, and in quotations, you put the path, the path to your folder. Okay. Now here's the loop. You do for each file obj in folder obj.files. This is the loop through all the files in the folder. This loops through all the files in the folder. And for a for loop, remember, you need to do next file obj. Okay. So now we can start opening up the workbooks. And in case they're read-only, we want to do something like this: application dot display alerts is equal to false. So this will not cause a problem if things are read-only, or there's other things, other messages that would pop up. So now we set the workbook equal to workbooks dot open, and then we do this file obj dot name, dot path. So right here we open up a workbook. Right? But actually, we need to be careful here, because what if a file in the folder is not one that we want, right? So let's put an if statement around here that says if file system object dot get extension name file obj dot path is equal to xlsm and left. So I only want to open up files that end in xlsm, and I only want to open up files where the file object.name begins with survey. Okay, so that's what this if statement does. It only opens up files that begin with XLM and the name of it is survey. Okay, so now we can open up a workbook here, right? So now we got to copy the results from the result tab. And how do we do that? So now the workbook is open, right? It has the user's information. We do wb.workbook.worksheets results.select. We do last cell is equal to range. Now this A2 to C5000 dot special cells. I'm using this special cells function, and what this special cells function does is in this range it finds the last cell in a range. So for instance, if I had data in here like this, it would find this cell right here. This is the last cell in the range. So I would say this is a very powerful function because it does stuff very fast. It could find the last cell real quick. So look that up, but that's what it's doing. It's just saying, you know, look at this big range, but give me the address of the last cell, meaning the one that's used in that range. Okay. So then once I have the last cell, I know that A2 is where everything starts, and I could use that last cell variable. And I didn't declare last cell, but it would be declared as a string because I'm using it like a string, right? I'm saying A2 to whatever. And I use this dynamically because I don't know how many results there are. You know, there might be 3 questions or there might be 500 questions. So that's why this last cell, you know, if there's 500 questions, and let me just copy this down. You know, the last cell would be here. Or if there's one more question, then the last cell will be here. So what I'm doing is saying select cell A2 to that last cell. That's what this does. That's what this line of code does. Range A2 to the last cell. Okay? And then you do just selection.copy, and now we go to the main workbook and we activate it. So we want to go back to it, and then we select the data sheet, and then you go if range A2 dot value is equal to blank. So now we're on the data sheet, and we want to find where we're gonna paste that value in, right? So you've seen this before if you watched any videos. You've seen this before, and if you haven't seen this before, then go watch the other videos. Okay, so now we just paste the data in. So we're on the data sheet, active sheet.paste, and then we can close the workbook. Now when I say close the workbook, I mean we activate that workbook, wb.save and wb.close. Okay, and then main wb dot activate. And that's our code. I mean, that is going to do it. It should do it. So let me take this and let me put a button on this sheet and put a button right here. Double click it. I'm just going to call it, right? I'll go back here. I'll change the property real quick to say get survey results. I'll change the back color. Okay. So let me save this and let me run it. Oops. Okay, so we found an error. What's that error? Right away I can see that I came to this line and I didn't do select. Right? So I'll stop. I'll run it again. And what should happen is this all should go away, and we should see 9 lines here for those 3 books in this folder. So what's happening again is that code is going in this folder, and for every file that ends in XLSM and the first 6 characters are survey, SURVEY, it's going to open it up, go to the results tab, copy the results, and paste them here. So let's do this. I spelled something wrong here. Scripting. Man, I spelled a lot of stuff wrong. Let me just copy this in here. And I'll do it again. Debug. So spelling errors, right? I mean, they're the biggest problem when, at least for me right now. Let's step through it. Okay. Okay, so for some reason, I think it might have been that survey was not spelled right, but it wasn't stepping through everything. There we go. Okay, so now it's going to run, I think. Let me go back here. File, OBJ path could not be found. Yep. I do not need these quotations around here because that's a variable. So sorry to take so much time. But there we go. There we go. Okay, things are working. Did you see that? Holy shit, right? You have 3 rows for Mary, you got 3 rows for Ed, you got 3 rows for Joe. You got your question numbers and you got your answers, right? And they come from the files that end in XLM and begin with survey. And notice that Ed was pasted right at the place it should have been pasted. And why was that? How did it know to paste it there? Well, it did that because right here it goes to the data tab, and if A2 is blank, then it selects A2. If not, it does that XL down offset 1. Okay? And how did it select Mary? How did it select the exact number on that results tab? Well, it went to the results tab here, and it found the last cell in the range. Okay? And it selected what it should have selected, right? Okay, so let me just run this again and I'll show you what's happening. It's opening up all those workbooks and it's populating this, right? So now this person has all the data from the survey. Real quick, what this person I think is going to do, and what, if you're not familiar with pivot tables, just go to this insert tab and go to pivot table and select your data range, which automatically it knows what to select, and you click OK, right? And now over here, you could put, let's see, you could put answer in the values, you could put question here, and you also can put answer over here. So here, now look what we got, right? For question 1, we have 2 people selected A, 1 person selected B. For question 2, we have 1 person selected A and 2 people selected B. For question 3, we have 2 people selected A and 1 person selected B, right? So that's correct, because remember, we had 1 person had all A's, another person had all B's, and another person had A, B. Let's see who this is. Joe, Mary, or actually we could go to data. Yeah, Joe selected ABA, right? So that's why we have ABA, because this is Joe, right? Okay, so that was a very long video. I hope you all are awake and I hope you stayed with it, because it goes through a lot, a full complete macro that is on the I would say it's very intermediate or advanced. I mean, this, if you can do this, then you're at the level of getting a very good VBA job. If you understand what are the main things, you know, those global variables in the other macro, those are huge, right? To be able to declare global variables in that macro and use them in other subroutines, that's a big concept. Not big concept, but it, you know, if you can do that, if you can open up all the workbooks using using these file system objects, right? So there, you know, I probably will put up another video on them, but all it is you're creating a scripting file system object so that you can access this folder, which is a folder object. Then notice that here file system object goes here, file system object.get folder, right? So this object gets the folder, this folder then gets the files, right? So if you see that, if you understand conceptually what you're doing is that once you have the folder, then you loop through all the files in the folder and you could access their path, then you're set. I mean, then it's pretty simple, right? So I should stop there, but notice that we have a fully functional survey system set up. Like I said before, is it the best way to do it? Probably not. I'd probably say not. But is it a very excellent exercise in VBA? Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to post both workbooks. This workbook, the results one. Basically, I'm gonna just post everything in this folder here. I'm gonna post everything here on the website excelvbasequel.com. So go there and you could download all the files. You can watch all the videos, and hopefully you won't run into any debugging issues trying to do it yourself, because the files are all there for you. It all works. You're just going to have to change the path to things, right? To the folders and things. So I'm going to post it on excelvbasequel.com. Remember, put your email in here, and you could get you get an email when new videos go up. So that's good. And also contact me here with questions and things like that. Thanks a lot, and apologize for the long video, but I think it was worth it. And if you can do this, then you're in great shape. Thanks. Bye.